And welcome back to another episode of the Double Doink Podcast. My name is Brendan Deek. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated. You can also rate the podcast and review the podcast wherever you do listen to your podcast. It would also be greatly appreciated. No Eric Warner today, as I have a very special guest with us. My guest today is a platinum-selling recording artist. He is also a producer, songwriter, and big Boston sports fan. Sammy Adams is in the building. Sammy,
how my God was good.
I'm doing good, man. So before we kind of jump into it, I just got to ask, what you been up to? Let the fans know what I guess Sammy's schedule's been like over the last few months.
Crazy. It's like taking a little bit of a step back from like socials and kind of like trying to dive into and really flesh out like a solid EP before like the LP, maybe end of year. It's always more of a painstaking process because it's like the first release of a, catalog of music than just singles. And, a year ago, 2 years ago, there was really no TikTok, there was no Instagram Reels or any of that. So like, I kind of had to dial it back because a lot of it, like whether it was Twitch or TikTok or whatever, like I still post funny videos and memes and shit, but at the same time, getting the music right and really like kind of rebranding in the best way possible to like kind of like dead the stigmas of like just being like a frat college rapper type thing. Like as you grow up, it's like I've always been able to spit, I've always been able to produce, but some people just think of me as like the I Hate College kid or the Drive Me Crazy kid or like the All Night Longer kid, which like to me, it's like that's a testament to music itself. Like I listen to so much classic rock. I'm obviously not gonna compare myself to like the greats, but it's like good music never dies. There's always like a couple songs, couple tracks that people won't like on an album, or just maybe they're just not for you, but they like the ones that other people don't. So my timeline's basically been like, working for Apple Music, curating some stuff. I work on Apple Music One, which is basically like just like fire music, fire new releases. And that's like a whole different weight because I was never really on the broadcasting side. So that being in the studio, tons of writing sessions, built out my studio. So producing a bunch of new music. I even got the old Boston.
There you go.
Banger still.
There you go.
Things like a dinosaur at this point. But yeah, just been busy, man. And like just got out of a session now with this dude, Dan, who's like multi-instrumentalist genius. So it's really cool. Like everything. I'm just taking my time with shit, It's like I'm not really concerned about dropping singles or like really even the numbers. Like that's why I kind of dialed back social media so I could really focus on like a new grand opening for this like new set of projects that I've lined up.
Well, man, I'm so excited to listen to new projects. I'm also so excited to have you here. Before we kind of get more into the music side of things, I do want to kind of talk about how our worlds collide a little bit here. As I've noticed I think it was about a year ago, I started noticing your social media. You're posting a lot of sports gambling stuff. A lot of people know you for your music, but you become kind of into the sports gambling and just sports fan in general side of things. How did that become a part? Like, how did that kind of come into your day-to-day life?
It's funny because like in terms of sports gambling, like I was always pretty up with Barstool, and then once they dropped Penn and DraftKings, and I mean just recently, like I'm in Brooklyn, New York, so it's like just recently New York went public and legal for sports betting and shit. But like before that, it was just cool to see breakdowns of like UEFA League, and like I love capping soccer, football, depending on where you are. I get like straight up castrated for calling soccer football if I'm with like a bunch of Brits on like a podcast. But like that side of it was super cool. And like there's always just like I think what really got me into it was like it was just like I called them like just blind dart parlays. And I would just pick like a team that was favored. Like it'd be like Liverpool or it was Man City, I think a year or two ago versus Norwich City. And I just like added Norwich into like a parlay and it was my last leg and they were up like 3-2. And I'm in the subway and I'm like going through stops like, no, bro, I'm gonna lose today. Like I can't see the score. And I'm like sweating on the way home. So that's really what got me into it. And then the whole Twitter Capper community was like super open to it. You know, a lot of these dudes knew I was like knew who I am, but like who I was in general in terms of like on the music side and we're fans. So it was easy to jump into, you know, just like a couple Twitter like group chats where like dudes are post collabs and like it's wild to see your fluctuation of followers. Like if you hit a parlay or like hit like a max bet, like all these people come flooding your page and then they totally take off.
And then pressure's on because once you hit one, the pressure's on. You got to keep going. Everyone only remembers you for your last bet, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, man. So you said you're living in Brooklyn, New York now, but you grew up in Boston, and you are a big Boston sports fan. You lucky bastard. You've definitely seen a ton of titles in your life. As a Toronto and Philadelphia fan, there's not a lot I got to celebrate for. But how many titles have you seen? Is there one that's kind of stuck out to you in your life?
I would say like had to be the Red Sox breaking the curse.
04, yeah.
The 04 World Series was crazy. I wasn't actually at the game. I was actually, I think it was like the 6th inning and we were driving into Boston hoping that like they would win the game. And, you know, it's like we thought it was going to be just, you know, a bunch of rainbows and champion signs and all that. And it's like, and then the entire block in Kenmore Square gets tear gassed.
Oh no.
But like, I mean, it was unreal to like see that. I mean, the big three winning in Boston was crazy. I've had, you know, between like Gronkowski and a ton of Patriots that went to school with my brother at University of Oregon, like Patty Chung and but like, and I mean, just endless like kind of ties with Belichick to like the Pats. We were both like sitting on like courtside or floor seats and like someone took a picture of Bill taking my number and I was like, I'll send you the photo because like most people were like, yo, this is probably Cap. Like you probably just went up to him and like Stu doesn't even know how to use a phone or whatever. And I was like, no, I was like, this was real because like his stepdaughters were fans and like it turned into him just like plugging us with tickets and like, you know, it was crazy. The first time I went to like look online at how many tickets he left us like 18 tickets. So like
I must really like you, Sammy. He's usually not that nice a guy, so maybe he hooked you up.
Yeah, I mean the media doesn't portray him in like he's such a different dude.
Okay.
You know, it's like whether it's like running into him in like the tiniest of all airports in like Nantucket, Massachusetts, or like, you know, after the game. He's just like a dude's dude. And he just absolutely abhors, like he hates the media.
Yeah,
as you can tell, his pressers are unbelievable.
He's the best with the media. I think the way he handles it is under talked about too because it holds the team together. When coaches are out in the media kind of spitting nonsense and stuff like that, the players hear it, right? And when you have a guy like Bill Belichick leading your team and doing that, I think it's under talked about, an underrated aspect of his career.
It is. I mean, and the cool thing about it too is like there's always like times where you just leave a game and you know, send him a text. It's like, thanks, BB. Appreciate it. Had a great time. Good win, coach. Have a good one. And then sometimes you go like in the actual like locker room and kick it with him. And like someone snapped a photo one time and he was just like smiling ear to ear. And I had a bunch of like media people ask me like, how do you get this man to smile? And I'm like, well, because
Teach us your ways, basically, right?
I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, because he didn't even think there was a camera on him. So I'm sure he was pissed about that post anyways. But it's like, end of the day, I think that was his second Super Bowl he won with Brady that year. So they were having a fantastic year. But yeah, it's crazy, man. Like there's so many moments, even like besides championships, I would say one of the best moments ever is when the Celtics just rocked the Cavs. Me and my brother and like two homies are at the game, and LeBron took his Cavs jersey off and threw it in the trash. And we were like, "Oh, you fucking balls out!" Like, we're like chirping up. We're not like. I mean, everyone says Boston fans are the worst. We're like, we all have our bad moments.
You guys get a bad rap. I'll say that.
Like
you guys aren't that bad.
It wasn't like Malice in the Palace. We're not like tossing like aluminum full beer cans at people. Yeah. So that was crazy because just like I wasn't really alive for the Celtics Lakers rivalry. I think the year I was born was the last year the Celtics had really like had dominance over them. So just so many moments like from like that I can remember of like being kind of conscious as a human that we just had an incredible run. I mean, whether it was the Bees, the Pats, Patriots, Red Sox, it was wild because it went from absolute turmoil when I was like 7 years old and, their HD TV was nowhere in sight. We were just getting absolutely drilled by the Rams, the Bengals, anyone, just lights out. We were terrible. So it was amazing. Like once I came of age to see all the athletes in Boston show out and get some chips.
I think there's like a kid, right, who brings a Bristol board to every Boston parade. I think it starts in 2001, and he adds like a logo onto it. And I've seen that kid on like social media rise to the ages and grow into like a man with like 16 titles on this Bristol board. And yet my dad, as a dire Leafs fan, like he loves the Maple Leafs, was 4 years old when they won, and this guy still writes letters to Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment saying how much they suck and how much the team sucks and how disappointing he is.
that was another wild one with the
when we choked at the 4-1 collapse. Oh,
the 4-1 collapse it's like, see, that's the thing is if Twitter was what Twitter is now.
Oh, I know.
Like the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead would like literally take the back seat to that because it was like, that's a 3-1 lead with 2 minutes left in an empty net. Like, I remember I wasn't even paying attention. I was like, well, the Bees backed out. I know some Boston people probably be real tight at me for that, but I was like literally in LA, like we just have no chance. Like this is almost like we need a miracle, and then like tied it up and won and apologized because I know
I'm used to it, man. I'm used to it, and we actually played tonight. Leafs and Bruins actually out tonight. So
fire! Let's go.
So tell me about your relationship with Jimmy Butler. I heard you guys are boys. He likes your music. I heard an interview where he was saying that he always listens to your music and he goes backstage to your concerts and whatnot. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Buckets, we've known each other for forever. I think it's the first time I met him was out in LA. I was kind of bi-coastal. I just like dropped out of Trinity, got a place in New York City because it's just easier to have 3 airports opposed to just like Boston, Logan. And then I was also in LA doing a bunch of stuff, like kind of shopping deals and whatnot. And like Jimmy and I just kind of ran into each other through a mutual friend, and we kicked it all the time. And he was, I believe, still, I think he was still kind of like free agent mode. He had just like taken Marquette to Sweet 16 or Elite 8. And so I think he was actually just signing with the Bulls. And that's like, he got like the contract and was all hype about it. And then like asked me for my address. And like the doorman in my LA place was like, yo, he was like, Mr. Adams, like you have like a whole like cart full of like different, packages, or they look like sneakers down here. He sent me like every one of my favorite pairs of Jordans.
That's sweet.
And it was because he just signed with Jordan too. So it was
Yeah.
like, it was crazy because he's like the most down to earth guy. He's catching a lot. He's catching a lot of smoke about like this shit with the team and Spoelstra the other day. And you know, it's like that type of shit happens with teams. And like he couldn't, like, I think it was my old DJ Dante, who works for Barstool, was talking about it the other day. And he was like, I might partner with his coffee company. And I told him, like, you know, I actually have met you through like being backstage at Sammy's shows. And he like said his smile went from like looking at him to like, oh, you know, Sammy, like that's my fucking guy.
Love it.
So Dante was like, he's basically like the anti-athlete because like he doesn't, you know, he just signed a crazy extension with the Heat, but also like, you know, you lock down Braun, you lock down mad people in important playoff games and just off the court, like there's a lot of people like will be in the DMs like, is he such a tough guy off the court? And I'm like, nah, he's the fucking man. Like
he's got a wide music range, right? Like I'm pretty sure he bumps country music. I think I've seen him at country music concerts before. Like yeah, he's a great guy off the court. And is this story true? I heard he faxed his Marquette I guess what's it called when you want to get into a college? He faxed it from McDonald's in the back room because he didn't have the money and couldn't afford it. Like this is a guy that's grinded his whole career. Like he deserves a lot more respect.
I mean, I think that whole thing was like he was at JUCO. I can't remember where he went to JUCO, but he was balling there, and I think it was like something like that, like a Starbucks or a McDonald's or
something like that.
And like sent it through, and then like went to Marquette, did his thing. You know, like always just been a team leader. Like that's, you know, it's always super easy. Like once you're under the microscope, and you make one bad decision, or you know, you have a riff with the coach or a riff with players or whatever. You know, it's like I said, it's not like Malice in the Palace. It's like it didn't go crazy. It never looks good on TV, but it's also like just people speculate on stupid shit that, you know, everyone's had a teammate that you're like, yo, pass the fucking ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like, or do this or do that. And, you know, everyone has their own opinion. So just to see him grind and hustle and get to where he was, and like, you know, he's kind of just straight up. Like he doesn't really cap for anybody. He's just like, yo, this doesn't feel right for me or my career. That's why I got out of Minnesota. Probably beyond like other politics and things for the team, but like really, you know, just great dude overall. Like we had a blast in LA, just like mobbing around, and then, you know, he turns into this crazy NBA star that's knocking down Braun and like getting 180 mil from the Miami Heat. Like I was supposed to link with him last time we were in Miami, but things just didn't work out. But like he's just one of those guys that's like unchanged. And it's cool to see that, because I know a lot of people that come into big money and big contracts and they just kind of turn into this like I'm kind of brand new type shit.
Yeah, personality changes. So you just brought up earlier you went to Trinity College in Hartford. You played actually D3 soccer there. Do you miss it at all? You miss around?
I do, definitely. Yeah. I definitely could not pass a Cooper test right now. I would need probably like a month training for that. But I mean, it's like, sheesh, after like a mile and a half, it's like, bro, how did you used to do this for 90 minutes? Like, crazy. But yeah, I definitely miss it. It's like one of those things where you kind of hate it preseason and you're dreading all the fitness tests and all the physical shit you have to go through before like making the team. Not that I was worried about that, more so just, you know, setting an example and passing all my, you know, actual, you know, Cooper tests and the line tests and all those
tests. Do you ever do the beep test?
The beep test. Like, it was like there was like Cooper test and the line test, which was like almost in between Cooper and beep test. And then like at that point, it was just like, all right, like I'm good. I only have 2 more years of this, but I definitely miss. I would say like playing a sold out show is like almost at the level of like scoring like a game winner in like the 90th minute.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to do that for 60 whole minutes and keep it lit or like keep it interesting, to say the least. But yeah, I definitely miss it. Sometimes I have weird dreams where I'll be like, oh my God, this assignment's due. And then I'll wake up and it'll be like a half kind of like, like student dream. And then I'm like, oh, word. I'm not in college anymore. I'm good. And then I'm like, oh, but the soccer side, like I wish I had one more game.
Yeah.
To like go flex.
That's your consciousness telling you miss it, man. Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you were at Trinity College at Hartford, is that where you wrote I Hate College Remix? Is that where it kind of all started, or?
Yeah, pretty much. So I transferred to Trinity from Hobart 2008, I believe. And it was like spring 2008. So I had 2 seasons with Trinity. And it was kind of like in the works because Ash was like, he just dropped the Greenhouse Effect, and the year after I followed up with like Asleep in the Bread Aisle. And that was kind of like, it was just such a like kind of fire drum loop and very like basic. It like wasn't really hype. It's like not like a all night longer, like a dance track, but there was something about it that caught my eye. So I just put like the twist on it. But I really didn't lock in the I Hate College idea until Trinity. It's probably because it was harder than Hobart. So I was like, I fucking hate going to class, but I do. I hate that aspect of it, but I do love college in general.
Yeah.
But that's where I basically like got fleshed out, and I cut it in, a 4x4 little closet with a shitty mic. One of my friends leaked it to the community chat called Trin Talk at Trinity. Before I put a second verse on it, I wanted to kill him. But it like circulated, so I knew I had to finish it because so many people were like bugging me about where's the final version, like when are you gonna finish it?
You knew you had something there.
Yeah, so I knew I had something there. So like that kind of just built up a bunch of confidence and like just for me personally to make records and produce and spend a bunch of time that usually would probably be out partying or chasing girls to like make a project, like because obviously whether it was us touring on off days or off season, we just really built like a tight-knit community of people, and like they really fucked with the music, and that's really what kept us popping.
So I remember when that song dropped, it caused like a tidal wave here, man. Everyone was listening to it where I'm from. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm about 40 minutes east of Toronto, and then you dropped Boston's Boy. It was almost like 10-year anniversary. Wasn't it in March or sometime? Is it 10
Yeah,
years?
it's March. Yeah,
March. Yeah. So it was not like it was on the anniversary, kind of about a month ago. Is there a song from that EP? Is there a song from Boston's Boy that you still remember as your favorite, or is it kind of just your baby in general, all of it?
Yeah, there's a couple. Like the most hype one I think playing live is like Coming Up, the most introspective one, where I was like in LA and I kind of didn't know what the fuck I was doing there. It was like Just Love Here, but like the banger of all of them was driving me crazy.
Yep.
Because that was like that Annie Lennox song was playing, like Walking on Broken Glass was like playing in every frat house, every house party. So it was an easy flip for me, but I had to like really get the piano dialed and have like everything come together. I ended up getting absolutely taken to the cleaners by Annie Lennox.
I did not know that.
But yeah, that's definitely the standout off that one, because it was basically like a product of my environment and a product of like where I was kind of just like paying attention to what other people were listening to, and it was kind of before the merger of like hip hop and EDM and hip hop and pop. It was very like kind of genre oriented. It's like you can't be this and be this, and then I think like for a lot of people it helped open up the kind of barriers and the gatekeepers of like what music can be. Because at the end of the day, it's like, who cares what genre you want to put it under? It's like, if there's rap on it or if it's a poppy hook, like you can go hip hop.
Man, you got it all. Like coming up, I used to listen to before like hockey games, football games. I actually was talking to a buddy I played football with at York University. He was saying like, man, like having Sammy on, like I used to listen to him before when I was at York University with you before games. And then you got like the party side of things. You got the Drive Me Crazy, of course. So man, that EP is legendary. That EP was a hit, still is a hit. All of our friends still listen to it. So man, congratulations on that as well. All the success there. I got to ask you this question. I'm really curious about this. Who are your biggest influences, or who still are? Like, who did you want to be? And I guess I'll kind of make it a two-part question. Who are like your top three? I'll put goats. I'll use the word goat for this. Who are like the three guys that you will put on like a stone and say these are the three greatest rappers of all time?
For me, I would say it like kind of stems back to like just the old school days of like kind of trial and error of finding your like own pattern of spitting. So I would say like early on and probably still to this day, I would say like Nas, Big L, and Biggie.
Okay.
Because like Big L was kind of like what
the freestyle king, man.
Like freestyle king, 98 freestyle, like, you know, only due to like he named his record label Flamboyant Records back in like 91 or some shit. So like he just had a different mentality, and like I think Dipset definitely like is the more modern version of that, because like, you know, they're wearing pink bandanas and like pink fur coats and like the whole diplomat sign. Like it's very Harlem, because obviously Big L is from Harlem. Nas, Illmatic's my favorite record ever by any rapper. And then just Biggie's wordplay, and just like
his voice was an instrument, man. His voice was a separate instrument. It was insane.
Overall delivery was just like extremely hard to top. And like, you know, it's like whenever people ask for like a top 5 or a top 10, it's like you got to add the Hoes in there and the Eminems and like Jadakiss, because Jadakiss wrote a lot of records for Diddy and Biggs. You know, and he's a punchline god. A lot of people at the end of the day, they don't do the research, so they don't really know that.
Yeah.
But that's why Dipset got clapped by the Locks, was because, you know, they were like, this ain't even your song. He's like, I wrote the whole thing. So those three are definitely probably the most influential and inspirational to me. And then as I kind of like got more well versed with newer hip hop, I always wanted to work with Pharrell, and then got the chance to do that.
Yeah, man, yeah.
Which was crazy. Like he's like a vampire, bro. Like he like has this wild brain, and you know, he just like everything he says, he doesn't even think it's like profound, but it's like just absolutely dropping gems left and right. Like I had to ask him in the studio one time, like, is it okay if I just like record this? Because like I'm not gonna write everything down, so you think I'm a psycho, but all these loosey gems you're dropping on me, I have to remember as an independent artist. You know? Like he built it with the Clips and Neptunes, and then, you know, brought his branding to a new level with Bathing Ape and Nego and all that shit. So big shouts to P. He's always kind of been in my corner since the day we worked together. So got a big shouts to Skate.
So I'll get you out on this last question, Sammy. Thanks again for taking the time, man. Really appreciate it. Talk to you forever. You're a really down-to-earth guy. So you've collabed with B.O.B. You've collabed with Enrique Iglesias. I can see that plaque in the background. That song's got, like over 120 million views now or something like that on YouTube.
Yeah, some crazy. I mean, I don't even know if Spotify was... when that dropped, I don't even think Spotify or DSPs really existed. I think it was still iTunes Store. Maybe it might have been first year, but it wasn't. It was still very much FM radio. And yeah, the Enrique show is wild. He's he's such a cool guy.
That's an absolute hit. You've also worked with guys like Method Man, Pharrell. You brought up Mike Posner, and my favorite, Currency. I cannot believe you worked with that guy. I was listening to that guy forever as a kid. He's still one of my goats, still one of my favorite rappers of all time.
Spit is unreal.
Yeah, I love him, man. I love him. So,
He's,
Sammy, out of all those guys, who's a favorite? Who was the guy that you still to this day kind of going like, man, I cannot believe I collab with that guy?
It's a tough one. I mean, I think in terms of like the hip hop legacy, I love that like Spitta was the only feature that I really ever like got on Boston's Boy. It's also probably the most high I've ever been in my life.
That's hilarious.
He does not cap about how much.
Oh yeah,
say that. But I would just kind of go back to the Pharrell thing because it was more of a build up for like my confidence and going in a new direction because I was kind of butting heads with my label at the time and he was giving me advice on how to, bust down this whole wall that people, kind of like pigeonhole you into being this or that. He's like, you have to be the one to break these stigmas, to break all of these like walls down. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to exist, especially if there are stigmas that are kind of like just soloed on you in general. So I would say like Spitta just for like the straight up hip hop vibes, and then Pharrell for kind of like life and career guidance, and then like playing Puerto Rico and Miami with like Pitbull and like Enrique Iglesias. It's just like a whole different world because like that production is like 200 to 500K at night. So I'd never, we'd have like an LED screen and some CO2 cannons and think we were big popping. And it's like, he's like, yeah, you're going to come out from the stage. So I had to practice like 6 times because the thing just shoots you up at like 25 miles an hour. So you go like 8 feet in the air almost.
Holy shit.
Or like maybe it's like 5 or 6, but it feels like fucking 20. And so like I didn't land it the first like 7, 8 times, and I landed on my feet, and like it's like all of them are like so different in terms of the experiences and like the lessons that each one of them taught me. But it's crazy. Like it's hard to put a favorite because they kind of brought their own influence in their own way for whatever genre, and then like Pharrell was kind of just like, yo, fuck genres. He's like, make what you want to play live. And that kind of took me back to.
That's great advice. Yeah, that's terrific advice.
And like took me back to making Boston's Boy, where it was like, I was just paying attention to my surroundings and people's favorite songs. And, it's like, I think that's kind of a lost art form because there's so many like copyright infringement attorneys and bots that catch shit here and there that like, you should, if you're a poppin' artist, like maybe like songs like the Harry Styles and and Ed Sheeran, they don't need to play poppin' songs in between. But for people that are just getting to know you, like playing records that have like, it's like a huge mass appeal that are big hit records and putting your own flip on it really helps a live show. So like that's like for me, whenever we're going back out on the road, probably this spring and summer, it's like kind of like having a little bit of that flair involved because it's like no one's ceasing and desisting like DJs for playing other people's songs. So kind of having like popping records out that you even just put like a verse on, and then it helps the whole medley of the songs you're playing and kind of keeps the energy just like elevated to a next level. And then also like kind of building out, like playing piano on stage and building beats from Boston's Boy and other projects on stage. So lots in the works, lots to do before all that comes into fruition, if you will. But it's never a bad thing to be super busy trying to build what you think can be like a totally different experience at a show.
Yeah, man, for sure. So you coming to Toronto? You said you're coming on tour. You coming to the 6?
I gotta come to the
You
6,
got
bro.
it,
I
man. You
love
got to
the
come
6.
back. Yeah.
Like we were talking about one of my security guards, like Opera House. You were there.
Yeah.
Then you played two encores. I forgot to wear boxers. I was wearing black Dockers. Thank God that the BlackBerry and flip phones and the Razors. Thank God those cameras were what they were. Because I have an HD version of my balls on your screen right now.
Boston's boy Sammy Adams with me. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. Greatly appreciate it. Is there anything you want to plug in quickly? Anything that's coming out that you want the listeners to take a look at, or anything at all?
No, yeah. I mean, just follow me on Instagram at Sammy Adams. Same thing on Twitter. Bunch of announcements and shit. Kind of coming next month. Just finalizing projects, finalizing what we really want to kind of put out for like a year or so. We've dropped some loosies and some singles here and there, but definitely gonna keep what's coming a little bit under wraps.
Thanks so much for doing this, man. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Appreciate you, dog.
Yep.